Hello again, and as you can see from my blanket, time has moved on just a little bit. The large squares of this section have all been joined, and it's time to move on to the very last part, the last section of the blanket, which is the final border and edging. I haven't bothered to video this part because this is simply a repeat of everything that you've done before. But I will talk you through it just now. So far, I've made a few rounds of treble clusters. Now, looking at this first round, this is the slightly lighter blue-green colour. There was a deeper blue after that. This was the first round after the edging of the squares. And I turned the blanket to the wrong side, the reverse side, and did my round of treble clusters. DC if you're in America. So the treble clusters are just very simply, we've done them before. It's treble 3, chain 2, treble 3 in each of the corners. And this round has along each side 71 clusters. It's not so terribly essential that the cluster count is given at this point because we have no more squares that we have to fit in. But nevertheless, 71 clusters along each side, including the treble 3 cluster at each end. Then I turned the blanket back onto its front and did the second round, which is the slightly deeper blue-green, and again treble clusters, and this time of course the count will have increased by 1, so there are 72. Staying on the front, so I didn't turn the blanket for the next round, round 3, and this is where we repeat what we did way back in the middle with the little round of double crochet stitches. Of course, that's single crochet if you're in the US, and these double crochet stitches worked into every stitch all the way along. So if you go back to the earlier section, you can go right back to the broad granny stripe border. It's exactly the same. So you're just working into the top of every stitch from the previous round. The red, I think, really pops. It brings it out into the border. Then for the next round, you turn over to the reverse again and work your round of treble clusters. And they are in the green, slightly dark green, and of course they're worked down into the spaces of the treble clusters from the dark blue round. So we're on to round 4 with the dark green after round 3 of the red DC, and the cluster count will have grown by 1 after this round. We've got one other round in the same colour, so you don't need to finish off your dark green at the end of the previous round. You just chain 2, turn the blanket over, and it's another round of treble clusters. Very, very simple. And your chain 2, of course, counts as the first treble in the new corner, so it's chain 2, treble 2, and then treble 3 all the way along. Staying on the front of the blanket for round 6, so you're not turning over, you're going to be working a round of treble stitches as opposed to treble clusters. Working with the very dark green yarn, this is going to be a little different. You need to just attach your yarn in any corner and chain 2, and that's the equivalent of the first treble stitch, and then one more treble stitch in that corner space. So unlike the treble clusters where we put a treble 2 after the chain 2, it's just one treble stitch after the chain 2. And now just look at the tops of these stitches all the way along. You're going to be working into the top of each stitch as you go, rather than the space between the clusters. So into the top of the stitches and into the next one with treble 1, and make sure you pick up 2 loops of that stitch, and so on. So you just need to continue with 1 treble stitch in the top of every stitch all the way along. And that's giving a nice edging to all the granny clusters that you've used so far. As it's coming out to the edge of the blanket, it's a good idea to try not to work too tightly. Keep your tension even to slightly loose so that there's not any puckering going on in the edge. But all you need to do is work all the way along, and when you get to the next corner, it's treble 2, chain 2 and treble 2 in the corner space. So I'll continue to work around all 4 sides, and I'll see you when I get to the end of this round. Once you get back to the first corner, of course it needs to be finished off with treble 2, chain 2 and slip stitch into the top of the first chain 2. Don't fasten off because you have another round of treble crochet stitches to do in that same shade of green, so just chain 2 and turn, and then repeat exactly what you've done with the previous rounds. So you've got 2 rounds of treble crochet stitches. With the 2 rounds of dark green treble crochet complete, it's time to move on to the very last edging, the very last border round, which is the edging of the blanket. And I've kept the blanket on its wrong side, so this is the reverse side. We did the second round of the treble crochet stitches on the reverse side of the blanket, and I haven't turned it over from that round. So we're going to start our border on the reverse side of the blanket. I just need to find the end of my yarn because we're going to be working with the red as a nice little contrasting border edging. We're going to be working mainly with double crochet stitch, which is the small stitch single crochet if you're in the US, and that's the stitch that we used for this little the little bit of red that appears every so often. So we're going to repeat that, the double crochet stitch. And if you'll remember, my choice was to not start in a corner, but to start 1 stitch in from the corner and just attach the yarn in that stitch, but not make at this point a double crochet stitch in that same stitch. I'm just going to put my attached yarn in there, and then we're going to count that as number 1. Now we'll come back round at the end and finish that with a double crochet stitch, but for the time being that's counting as number 1, and then into the next one with a double crochet stitch, which will count as number 2, and into the next one as number 3. And I recommend that you do your best to try to keep this double crochet stitch a little on the loose side, not so terribly loose that it looks untidy, but if it's just on slightly on the looser side of what would you say, what's the word, even, that's what I'm looking for. You know, I work with an even tension normally, but I'm going to make my double crochet stitch just a little looser, and that stops the edge from curling or from bowing or tightening up. So so far I've done my very first attached stitch, which is count as number 1, 2, 3 and 4. We've got another one to do, 4. And then I'm going to do something just a little bit different. In the 5th stitch, I am going to make 2 stitches. I'm going to put 2 stitches into the next stitch along. The first stitch is a double treble stitch, and the second one is a double crochet stitch. Now, a double treble is just a treble in US terms, but double treble in UK terms, and then onto the double crochet stitch, which is single crochet in US terms. So, double treble, you wrap your yarn twice around the hook, go into the next stitch, pull up your loop, and you've got 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2, and yarn over, pull through the last 2. That's a double treble, and that's a very long stitch. As you can see, it's bending because it's so long. And then into the very same stitch, I'm going to put a little double crochet stitch. I'm going to move on to the next one and put in 1 double crochet, and then the next one again, 1 double crochet, so that's 2 double crochets, 3, that's 1 in the next one, and 4, so you've got 4 double crochets. And then it's time to make the double treble stitch in the next stitch along, and a double crochet in the same stitch. Now, why am I doing that? If you've never done this before, you'll be wondering why on earth I'm putting 2 stitches into 1 stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do it once more. 1, twice round the needle, hook, and 1 double treble and 1 double crochet. Now, if I turn this over, and remember we're on the reverse side, so there's a good reason for working this on the reverse side, because what you get on the front is that little bobble every so often appearing. Now, you don't get any value for it at all on the back, which is why I am working it on the reverse, and I think that's going to make a relatively plain, simple border, but with a little bobble every so often, which I think is nice and Christmassy. So it's 4 double crochets between each bobble, and I'll see you when I get along to the end of this side. So this is the first side of the blanket with the little bobble round, and I've got to the end, to the corner. Now, the way my stitches worked, I knew that I had, I think it was 230 treble crochet stitches all the way along the side, so dividing that by 5 meant that I've got 46 bobbles, and the very last stitch on mine is a bobble. You probably will have 230 stitches, but you might not, because of just simple things like missing out the very first treble crochet stitch in the previous round, because sometimes it's got to be found right in the corner. Just things like that which can throw out that. I'm not concerned about the count for these stitches. If you are out, you have less of your treble crochet stitches, then you won't have a bobble at the end, and that won't matter. It really won't matter. So I am at the corner now, and like before, I'm just going to put in 1, 2, 3 double crochet stitches just to get round the corner, and then we're off again into the first one. This is what I mean about sometimes missing the first stitch. It can be hidden by the time you've done your corner stitches, but this is the first one, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we can make the bobble with the double treble and double crochet in the same stitch, and then off we go. So that's taken you round the corner, and you can now continue and go round all 3 sides of the blanket. And when you're back, I'll just remind you about covering that very first attachment, the way we attach the yarn on the very first stitch, and finishing off, and that will be the end of the blanket. So I will work all around my 3 sides, and I'll see you when I get back to the beginning. And there we are. I've come all the way round all 4 sides, and would you believe all 3 sides were exactly the same number of treble stitches, so they all worked out exactly the same. And the 4th side, I have got 1 extra treble crochet stitch in the previous round, because as you can see, my last bobble is there, and then there was 1 more stitch, but I'm not worried about that. That's not going to make any difference to the look of the blanket. So I've put that last stitch in, and then I've got my corner to do, which of course is 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then there's this very first stitch, which was really just the yarn being joined. So I'm going to put a double crochet stitch in there, and then all you need to do is slip stitch into the top of the next double crochet stitch, and you can fasten off, and that's the blanket finished. So I'll pull that through, and of course this is the reverse side, so when I turn it over you can see that the bobbles are very obvious on the right side of the blanket, and it just gives that nice little finish. Am I going to get that in camera? There we go. Little finish to the blanket, and I think it just adds a little bit of a Christmas holly berry look to the whole thing. So next thing to do, if you've got to this stage, is to check all your ends are neatly and securely sewn in. I've done all that, so all I have are the ones for this round, and then you can give it the pamper wash that I recommend. Because this is an acrylic yarn, you can throw it into the washing machine on a cool wash. I do a light wash, which is only 15 minutes long, and then a rinse with some fabric conditioner and a good spin. I do a 1000 to 1200 RPM spin, so that when it comes out it is almost dry. But that's all explained in the pattern, and I've also got a video in my channel which explains the pamper wash. I'll try and link it here. And there you are, all set for Christmas. The Granny Does Christmas blanket is finished. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy making the blanket, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas when that comes along. Bye for now.